Welcome to Plantified, because growing should be for everyone. Today we are telling you everything you need to know to boost your favorite plant's growth. So you want to know how to get from something like this size to something like that in only 1 week, then you better stick around. By the way, this is our purple basil here, and just like every plant, there is some part of the plant living on top of the soil and under the soil, mostly in some pot as well. And the roots are not visible, but we will still talk about them. So if you want to know how to boost your plant activity in the top, in the leaves, and in the roots as well, then this video is for you. So let's start with the top. Of course, everybody knows that plants need light for photosynthesis, and we covered the whole light topic in our earlier videos. But to really understand how to boost photosynthesis, it's important that we try to zoom in and see what happens inside a leaf. So if you would use a strong enough microscope, you would see something like this. So every leaf on the bottom side of the leaf, as you can see here, has these holes that are called stomata. And there's a lot of them, and they act like a gateway for the plant for gas to go in and gas to go out. So without these stomata, the plant could not breathe. And when I say that the plants are breathing, then of course it's not in the usual way like with us mammals, but the stomata still can open and close, depending on a lot of variables or parameters. But even though I'm saying they are breathing, they are not breathing oxygen, of course. They are doing the contrary. They are breathing carbon dioxide. And as we all know, we have a very, very, very little amount of carbon dioxide only in the air. It's 0.04% or 400 ppm, and the oxygen part is around 21%. So for us, there's a lot of oxygen to breathe, but these plants are actually fighting for every carbon dioxide molecule. So here's actually a way to boost the photosynthesis rate of your plant by improving the quality of this breathing. There's two ways. So number one would be, of course, to increase the carbon dioxide rate around the leaves. And this is a CO2 generator. It's one type of generators. We will give a reference in the description where you can see a lot of different methods how to generate CO2. But this is one of the go-to methods, and we will do an in-detail video about how to use one of the CO2 plants. The second way to boost your photosynthesis is by allowing the stomata to frequently open and close, because if they do that, then they can continuously use the CO2 around the leaf. But if the stomata would be open all the time, then the plant will lose a lot of water because they are transpiring also. If they are closed all the time, then on the other hand, no CO2 can go inside to the plant, and there will simply be no photosynthesis. And to avoid that the plant is getting too dry, you need to increase the humidity. If you want to increase the humidity, you need a humidifier. And personally, to be honest, everybody should have one, even if you are not growing plants. It's good for your sleep. So if you want your plant to thrive properly and grow healthy, then you should stay in a certain range for the temperature, 20 to 30 degrees. You also should not exceed 70% and not go lower than 50%. If you go higher than 70%, you could get some fungi, and lower than 40%, you're also risking the leaves to get dry. So don't worry about the details when it comes to the climate conditions around the leaf. We will have a detailed video about that as well. And here's another special tip for you. If you see something on the top of your leaves blocking the light, then make sure to keep it clean to maximize your photosynthesis. Oh, and by the way, as a small hint, turn off your CO2 generator during the nighttime, because basically you would waste it. There is no photosynthesis happening in the leaves during the night. So during the nighttime, it's also important to understand that when there is no photosynthesis and no gas exchange with the carbon dioxide, the plant has to get its energy somewhere else. The plant needs to use the oxygen from the surrounding air in order to burn up this sugar. Of course, this burning of oxygen happens in every cell of the plant, no matter whether it's in the leaves or on top of the soil, or whether it's in the actual root system of the plants. Oxygen is needed everywhere, but within the root system, it's especially needed because it's not so easy for the air to access the roots, as you can see, or as you cannot see, because of course this pot was not transparent. Small pro tip: use a transparent pot, then you can also see whether your plant is ready to find a new home to a bigger pot. To illustrate this a little bit better, I have these two examples here. and I think they show a big contrast. This plant here has, for example, not so much roots visible, and this plant for sure is on the way of finding a new pot. Another thing that I really like about these transparent pots is not only that I can know what time I should change the pot, it's also so I can know if there is actually a healthy root development there or not. To increase further the oxygen access for these pots, we also like to manually put these holes. You can put as much holes as you want as long as the container does not collapse, but we think that these ordinary pots without any holes on the sides are not very beneficial. And another pro tip, when you change your plant into a new pot and you prepare the soil respectively, then you could use this trick here we are showing, where we recommend that you put holes within the new part of the pot that is not occupied by roots yet, so you cannot hurt them, and this way you can also for sure increase the oxygen access. Outside, naturally this would happen by some insects that are digging some tunnels within the earth or the soil. Since we don't have any insects, or we don't want any insects within our growth system indoor at home, we have to do this manually if we want to imitate this activity of the insects. Of course, there are a lot of different types of substrates, and we are not going to talk about all of them here, but these are the most prominent. We observed that most commonly people use earth, and some people even use earth from outside and bring it indoors, which we really don't recommend, because you never know what's inside there and you don't want to have some bad surprises, let's say. This is why if you want to use earth, then please buy the respective earth for your indoor grow and don't use any earth from outside. Me personally, I would not use earth, and I think a lot of indoor growers would agree, because earth itself doesn't have the best properties, to be honest. In nature, the plant doesn't really have a choice, but if we have a choice, we should choose a substrate that has good attributes. Most prominently, the drainage is the key factor here. You want the substrate to be able to take and collect a lot of water, but also be able to transmit oxygen through the substrate. And when it comes to this, earth is really not the best option. Next up is rock wool, and I'm sure some of you already have seen something like this. It's not only used within the indoor context, but for indoor it was used in the old days a lot, because it has better properties when it comes to keeping the water and transmitting the oxygen. But I also don't use it because this rock wool has very, very tiny pieces of glass-like material. And when I was using it, I was using gloves and carrying gloves, and I don't want to carry gloves all the time. Plus, whether you are wearing gloves or not, don't touch your face with any of this small glassy material. Another interesting property of this rock wool is that it's isolating the temperature. So if it's colder outside, the roots will not freeze. And when it's hotter outside, the roots will also not start to getting in trouble with the temperature. If you want a substrate that combines all the good features and attributes you need for your roots to thrive and be healthy, then your go-to option, in my opinion, is coconut fiber. Coconut fiber has all you want: the best drainage, a lot of oxygen transmission, and for me personally, I like that it at least looks like earth. And very important, when it comes to the pH value of your substrate, then earth doesn't do a good job. Stone wool has a neutral pH of 7, and coconut fiber already has the desired 5.5. Keep in mind, however, that coconut and rock wool as well, they don't have any nutrients within themselves, so you have to add fertilizer, something like that, or something like that. There are a lot of different brands when it comes to fertilizers, and I can tell you nowadays it's more like every fertilizer has everything the plant needs, and they are very, very similar. So you don't have to pay for the big brands here. Even though earth itself has initially some nutrition within itself, you have to, after some time, increase the nutritional value again by using fertilizers. If you don't know how to prepare your coconut fiber or other substrate properly, then don't worry, we are doing a video about that as well. Also, when it comes to the right nutrition and everything else, what to use in order to have the perfect substrate. It's not only about the material used in the substrate, it's about the conditions as well. What conditions could I mean? The most important factor when it comes to having a healthy soil is of course the pH value. And for different pH values, you will have a different nutrition availability, as we show in this picture here. So on the bottom, you can see the pH range from 4 to 10. And the more you go to the left, it's a more strongly acid environment. And the more you go to the right, it's a strongly alkaline one. We see on the left different ingredients for our nutrition cocktail. And the most important, of course, are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. These are the main nutrients for the plant. Nitrogen is used for general growth and structure, and phosphorus and potassium get very important when it comes to fruit development. As a final take-home message, we can see in the middle from the actual data of the graphic that for different pH, we don't have the same availability of the respective nutrient on the left. To stay safe, it's good to have a range from, let's say, 5.5 to maximum 7, and in this range it should be possible for the roots to absorb all of the nutrients. Often cited is 6.2, where you have a very good contribution from every nutrient. Just to make the graphic more clearer, if we go to 4.5 here, for example, then you can see that the plant has a hard time to collect the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and so on. So try to avoid these ranges where the nutrients are not available. Even though they might exist within the soil, the roots can simply not absorb them. That was our last tip for today. We had quite a lot of tips, so this is why we compiled a special PDF file for you. It's downloadable from the link in the description, and with this PDF file as a sort of summary, we hope that it makes your life a little bit easier. Don't forget to subscribe and have a beautiful day. Thank you for watching Plantified.